TV.
Welcome back to NTV tonight. This is a special discussion here on the broadcast, of course, as we count down the hours to an unprecedented process in the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Of course, there has been attempts, but this is the farthest seemingly it has gone, that the motion by Parliament to impeach Deputy President Ruto-Gachagua. The Speaker of National Assembly outlined the calendar of events, tomorrow, Friday, being the day for public participation, which is not envisaged in the standing orders of the National Assembly, but has been put into the process ostensibly to thwart anybody going to court later on. We'll be getting into that later on. But let me just show you what is on the Daily Nation cover tomorrow. Gachagua's fight back. That is the big story. That is, of course, focusing on what has been happening in the last few hours. The DP yesterday, or today, moving to court, filing what has been an 11th attempt to block the impeachment motion against him. We have counted 10 others that have been filed before the courts and been rejected. By the time we were going to on air, we were still waiting on the outcome of this latest petition that is before High Court Judge Lawrence Mugambi. Shall be checking what is happening about that. So be sure to check out more details of that. DP was also denied owning properties worth 5.2 billion shillings, part of the charges against him as public participation across the country looms. And we shall be covering that for you here on NMG platforms in the way only we can. You can also get more details of the rollout of the Social Health Authority SHA platform there on the Daily Nation. Now, joining me in studio tonight is Migori Senator Eddie Okech and the Murang'a County Senator Joe Nyutu. Thank you, Waheshimiwa, for joining us here tonight as the country waits with bated breath what will be happening tomorrow and, of course, next week as Parliament, the National Assembly, prepares to, debate, to hear the Deputy President and also vote to send this matter to your house, which effectively is the trial house. Let me start with you, Senator Nyutu. There has been a lot of debate over the impeachment push against Deputy President Ruto-Gachagua. Do you think Parliament is justified, or those pushing that motion are justified with the grounds that they have cited to kick him out?
So thank you, Ben, and good evening to you and our viewers. Ben, we have had I would call them allegations that have been presented in Parliament, in the National Assembly, right, through that motion. And from where I see it, I've not seen anything that carries enough weight to, persuade any member of National Assembly to impeach His Excellency the Deputy President Ruto-Gachagua. And why do I say this? Most of the things, Ben, that we saw when the motion was moved on Tuesday are things generalities, things that generally politicians do. If you talk about the wealth that, for example, that the Deputy President had by the time he came to office about 2 years ago, and what he has now, I think I've heard him say that especially the hotels that he has been accused of having acquired over the last 2 years, that they belong to his sons, and the sons went to the banks, obtained loans, and bought the same. And Ben, I think the most important aspect for me to mention, especially in that particular, regarding that particular, ground that has been presented, is why did anyone just think of, auditing the deputy president and not anybody else. Because if it's a fair thing, then I would expect, if you're dealing with institutions, then would you first tell us how much wealth His Excellency the President had when he came to office and how much wealth he has now? Then you go to his number two, you tell us that the Deputy President had this, owned this was his wealth this time. And so now you'll convince us that you are auditing the presidency.
All right.
But when you pick on just one person, then of course everybody will, suspect foul play.
So fair play, and I'll come to
Yes.
Senator Okech. That is just one of the grounds, and,
Yes.
and of course we shall be hearing about it more on the floor of the House. But the major one, going by the debates, he has been accused of being tribal or tribalistic or lacking the unifier factor that is needed of a deputy president. So what do you say to that?
Thank you, Ben. Again,
By pushing this Mlima mountain, I'm fighting for my mountain people.
he has not just been fighting for the mountain people. And I can tell you that His Excellency the Deputy President, I have been with him to Kericho, in matters tea. Kericho is not in the mountain.
All right. So
He
let
has
me interrupt you. Your audio is a bit faulty. We'll fix it. We'll fix it.
Okay.
But in the meantime, Senator Okech, what are your initial reactions to this impeachment motion against the DP and all the debates that are rife?
Thank you, Ben. It's nice to see you again after quite a while.
Karibu sana.
And I'm very proud of the fact that you guys have remained consistent in trying to help the nation always get balanced news. And I'm also grateful for the fellow Kenyans who have joined us tonight to discuss a very important issue. I think this is the most important issue this year that we are dealing with because we have had a number of vice presidents in the past before we became the deputy president in the year 2013. And in the various instances that we have had vice presidents, they have had issues with their presidents as their bosses. And in any undermining terms, 3 of those instances we have seen critical shifts in our politics that in some instances have sent the country to a serious political wave. To start with, we had Jaramogi Oginga Odinga as a deputy to Kenyatta, and the difference between the two was so vehement that took the country to a path that was a wandering path for 50 years. Actually, now over 60 years, actually, if you think about it. Some of the political cadence you are seeing in terms of tribal balkanization, wars and rivalries among tribes is because of that difference. Between the current president and the former president, President Uhuru Kenyatta, we also saw almost a similar problem, whereby you can say that if you are keen, you can say that that was a marriage that their children had grown, as we're saying with the Senator Nyutu here, their children had grown so big that they couldn't divorce. So then they had to just have separate beds and keep on coexisting, but it was almost near divorce. So this is why this conversation about deputy president's impeachment is not a light one, because this will be the first one in the history of Kenya that will make itself to parliament. But that said, I must put a caution to the two of us, but most for me as Eddie, because I am elected as a senator in Kenya. And when this case will be prosecuted in the National Assembly, it will come to the Senate.
Yes.
As an issue of the deputy president, Ruto-Gachagua, versus the National Assembly, to the extent that some or all of these issues that have been raised in terms of allegations will appear before us as a House, and we must be careful not to put any prejudices upon them. Because allegation is one thing, prosecution of that matter is another, in the extent that the National Assembly is actually going to do a prosecution and try to substantiate some of these issues. And the reason why this is important is because if you remember the Wambura 2 case that we had in 2014, when the Governor Wambura was impeached, when the case went to the Court of Appeal, the Court of Appeal squashed that case on the basis that the then Senator Boni Aluale, had given comments that would then appear as if they are
Yeah.
prejudices.
No, we will be
But
careful.
That said,
We will be careful.
that said,
Yes.
we must accept that an impeachment is both a political and a legal process. Because we sit as a parliament under Article 125 of the Constitution, and in that article, we sit as a high court. So there are some of these allegations that we will look at in terms of just looking at the balance of probabilities. But you see, there are some criminal aspects that always will need a beyond reasonable kind of doubt approach to the issue called substantiating them.
We'll get to that.
Yes.
If I can ask you,
Yes.
in your opinion, from where you sit,
Yes.
what happened? What broke this relationship between President William Ruto and his deputy so much so early in their first term?
So I love that question, because that question now is the political aspect of all this conversation. And I'll borrow some morals from the cases that I talked about the previous presidents, and I'll borrow particularly from Oginga Odinga and Kenyatta. The difference between Oginga Odinga and Kenyatta was that was an ideological difference that then made these two not see eye to eye.
Right.
From journalistic conversations and from what we as Kenyans have seen among the politicians of the current day, and particularly between the president and his deputy, is that their difference is coming to be a difference of greed. And it's greed that is now causing this big problem. And why do I say so? I say so because when the deputy president took over office, the first client call to consolidate that office, which was supposed to be a national office for you and I, who perhaps might have come from different quarters, or another Kenya who might not have voted for the president and the deputy, the rallying call would have been the idea that the president is supposed to be a national seat. But immediately it was made to be a CEO and a CFO position, whereby the deputy president was quoted in a number of places saying that Kenya was akin to a company. And that notion of a company, you see it reflecting on a number of journalistic conversation around this impeachment, where instead of seeing the people of Kenya as voters and therefore as people, the political class then started seeing people as perhaps if you're coming from the mountain, then you are seen as waru, as a common commodity from that
I want
place.
you to put a pause there, because
Yes.
we need to take a quick commercial break, but I need to take Senator John Newton's view on this. We'll come back to the issue of the national unity and the tribal allegation. But in your opinion, what broke this relationship so much, so early?
I think what broke the relationship so early is the fact that, you know, when His Excellency the President came to the mountain to do his campaigns, I think we did not have a kingpin, in quotes. Right. So he came direct to the people, and it's just my thinking. And now that His Excellency the Deputy President has consolidated the mountain, that he can direct, for example, where the votes will go, I think then the President is not very comfortable with that particular situation. And I think that is why the handlers of the President have been trying to paint the Deputy President as a tribalist. Because I think it's not a very comfortable situation for the President. Of course, if I was in his shoes, I think I would also feel uncomfortable. That you see, this is a region where I went directly to the people and won the people's hearts. But now there is this person that is consolidating this vote, and he's most likely going to direct where it goes. And so, you know, you're not very comfortable because you do not know whether this particular person can decide to take the votes elsewhere. And I think, Ben, if you ask me, that is where the war is. The many, you know, nicknames, the many things that Rigiji is a tribalist, is all because people would not have wanted any particular person to command the votes in the mountain. I think in a nutshell, that is that is the gist of this matter. Don't look elsewhere. That is where the problem is.
Do you agree?
I'm curious if that is the basis that cannot be a basis for breaking, because if we are within marriage and we are both seeking for votes and you're consolidating your votes and you're my deputy, I would think that that's a good thing, because then it means that I can be assured of your votes next time because you're consolidating them. I think this was an issue of greed, given what the conversation has been, in the sense that people got into government, and once people got into government, everybody started seeing at what can I be able to get in this government. And you know, when Riggy just constantly talked about the issue of mountain, despite the fact that the deputy president is a national seat that is not only limited to the mountain, the question there, the undertone there is about resources.
We'll
and
tackle
about
that.
What comes to him and the people of the mountain, which is a fundamental question of resources.
We'll tackle that when we come
an
back.
issue of greed.
We'll tackle that very issue, which has been a major part of the conversation when we come back after this quick commercial break. Don't go too far. We are, of course, counting down hours to that public participation exercise across the country tomorrow to see how it goes in this process that has been instituted by the National Assembly. Stay with us.
You know you're flying with the world's best. Crowned by Skytrax 15 years in a row. Yep, we've taken over 500 million of you to places. Our crew, they train like champions. Global safety standards, we nailed them. 23 years in counting, all thanks to our dedicated All-Stars and you.
Report to the nearest health facility any child under 15 years experiencing sudden weaknesses in their hands, legs, or both with no history of injury. Polio and other vaccines have been tested and are safe and effective. Vaccinate and protect your child now. This message has been brought to you by Ministry of Health, UNICEF, and other partners.
Every step you take echoes the heartbeat of change, and every mile run is a promise fulfilled. The Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon is more than just a race. It's a testament to hope, resilience, and transformative power. The 21st edition of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon is here, and you need to be a part of this uplifting journey. Your participation directly supports the Future Makers program, an initiative dedicated to empowering young people, especially girls and people living with disabilities, to learn, earn, and grow. By running, you're not only challenging yourself, but also investing in their dreams and futures. Join us at the Uhuru Gardens on Sunday, October 27th for a day that blends excitement, unity, and purpose. Register today for just 2,000 shillings at www.nairobimarathon.com and take your place in this pivotal event.
Welcome back. You're watching NTV tonight. We are discussing the impending or the ongoing process of impeaching Deputy President Ruto-Gachagua that has been instituted by the National Assembly for the next over the next 3 or so days. It's supposed to culminate in the National Assembly, where 2/3 majority vote takes it to the Senate, which can either uphold or reject that verdict by the National Assembly. A lot of allegations have been brought up before or against the Deputy President. Of course, we don't want to be prejudicial ahead of that quasi-judicial process we will be seeing in Parliament next week. But there's this issue of the tribal card or the tribal allegation. If you can navigate your way, Senator Okech, around it, it has been sold by the movers of this motion against the DP that he has been agitating for the rights of just a certain people. What is your take on it?
So, I mean, the tribal issue, I think that, again, I would wait until, because every allegation, there will be an evidence that must be given by the members of the National Assembly. Yeah. Remember, our House, the Senate, has always been very, very, I think, above board in terms of dealing with it. By the way, we are a House that has dealt with more impeachments than the National Assembly, including now, we are dealing with 2 impeachments. We're dealing with the Rigiji impeachment, and we also have the governor of Kericho's impeachment that is in the House. Yes. So we've always tried to be very sober in terms of waiting for the substantiation of the issues that have been raised. And I would want to see the merit of those issues that has been made. But in journalistic conversations and in political conversations, be it as it may, I think some of these allegations also you might find yourself bringing them to yourself. Because if you think about it, the Constitution establishes a number of seats in the country. I think that the presidency as one, that is the deputy president and the president. Then we have got the Senate, we have got governors, we have got MCAs, we have got MPs, the members of National Assembly, who are divided both into substantive constituencies, right, and women reps. If you think about those seats clearly, Ben, those seats, there are some of them that are regional, and there are some of them that are national leadership. The only 2 seats that are regional in the sense is only MCA and governor. Because when you are an MCA or governor, then you are a governor of your region, and you are governor or you are MCA of a ward in your region. Presidency, the deputy presidency, senator, women rep, normal national members of National Assembly. These are national seats. Now, there has been journalistic conversation where the deputy president sometimes have put himself in very precarious situation, where you go to places that, like, you are in Siaya, or you are in Mandera, or you are in Coast, and then you say, "I kiti ni ya Mulima," or you say, I come from Mulima. So some people could feel, I can see how some people could feel that they are isolated from the service of that seat called the presidency, to the extent that it put you in that situation. And we've also seen those instances where we have got some very serious national issues going on, and the posture then becomes that tribal posture. With a number of leaders, not only Rigiji, but a number of leaders. For instance, I was involved in the first protest. You remember the protest around, open the server, the legitimacy of the current regime. And when there were killings of young people in Kisumu, there were killings of young people in Migori and other places, the deputy president made pronouncements that perhaps the people in that region could have felt that this is not my deputy president. So a statement like, people are mourning, and then you say that the coffins and the corpse have been hired for theatrics. These are statements that could put you in a very precarious situation. Right. So I can see where these kind of allegations can come from, but I don't want to talk about the merit of that particular allegation up until it comes to the House.
Fair.
But that is the basis. But even the last one, Ben, if you think about when Honorable Wandai and Honorable Mbadi, Joho, and Oparanya joined the cabinet, you could see the same undertones of us versus them coming from other, different quarters of leadership. And the last one, the very last one, is the budgeting instruments. You've seen a number of places where the budgeting instruments at the national level is so skewed to the extent that it favors some regions above others in terms of what allocations they get and how that is influenced. So the tribal element of organization and sharing of resources in government is indeed endemic in this country and is indeed a problem, but some of it comes with the leaders putting themselves in that kind of situations.
Senator Nyutu, did Ruto-Gachagua talk himself to the gallows, so to speak?
Ben, I think it all boils down to what I had told you. Why this war? So that, each one of us make their comments on a daily basis. But if I'm fault finding, I'll just pick that particular part of your statement where that fits my argument, where if I want to smear you, I mean, I don't think any time the Deputy President stands to address a gathering that his whole speech centers on Mlima. But there could be something in the speech that talks about the mountain. So what the detractors have been doing is picking those, and sometimes it's an off-cuff remark, picking those small bits and pieces in his statement that fit the argument that he's a tribal leader. Otherwise, he has been talking about very many other things. When, for example, Eddie says that the Deputy President, and I think I wouldn't sit here and say that killings by police are anything that we should allow. But I think when Eddie says that the Deputy President talked about coffins being hired and paraded, I don't think there was anything tribal about that. I mean, he did not say these...
and cops, because there are people...
Fine. It's regrettable. Anytime somebody dies because they've been killed by a police bullet, especially when they're innocent, that is a situation that no Kenyan should support. But, you know, Senator Eddie was talking about these coffins, trying to say that the Deputy President actually was, tribal in that particular comment. I don't think he said that these comments...
I don't want to...
Just a minute, Eddie, you'll have your time. Okay. So I think, fine, I think he was just trying to say, and you know, in politics, people can do anything. I don't want to say that the coffins were hired, but it is something people can do. I'm not saying they did it, but it's something people can do. Yes, people can do that in politics, and you know that, Senator Eddie. So I don't think he actually talked himself into this. It's only that there has been a scheme, to portray him as tribal. So like I started by saying, anything small that he says, then in the midst of a long speech, is taken out of context to paint him in the way that the detractors want him to appear.
All right.
Yes.
Ben,
just a minute. Just 1 minute, because we need to move on then.
There's something you said that I want to be very clear, because I'm very sober on these matters, and I'm very objective on these matters. I did not say that because of what Rigiji said about the coffins, then it makes him tribal. I said there are pronouncements that if we make as leaders, it might make some people feel in a certain way. Why am I saying that? That is very important. It is important that if you're elected as a national leader, whatever pronouncement that you make somebody in Turkana feel that I am part and parcel of this leadership, right? Because once you're elected as a president, you cease to be a president of the people who elected you, or even as the deputy, you cease to be that. Even us, where we elected him, Newt is elected as a senator, the people did not vote for him. But when he's speaking on behalf of the people of Muranga, he cannot speak in a way that excludes some people who appear who have...
I think your point is clear.
That's what I'm saying.
I think your point is
in that
clear
context,
now.
because I want to be a judge in this case.
I want us to move on to something else. I want to move on to something else, and this is the politics of it now.
Yes.
Let me start with you, then I'll come to Senator Nyutu. We have seen a kind of a replay of what happened prior to the 2022 election between, in the Kenya Kwanza camp, where there was voting of who should be the running mates. There was a competition between the DP Ruto-Gachagua and the current CS for Interior, Kithure Kindiki, who many people have touted as the next DP if Ruto-Gachagua is impeached successfully. And we had, there was a vote which Kindiki was winning time and time again, but the president stuck to his guns that he wanted Ruto-Gachagua. Many people have sold this story that a lot of Mount Kenya members of parliament are against the DP. From your interactions in parliament, what is your view on the interaction of the Mount Kenya brigade in this impeachment process?
You see, I like that question as well, because the impeachment process under Article 150 and Article 149 actually, where there's even timelines about these things, is that the impeachment process starts with these allegations and presentation at the National Assembly, then it ends with indeed a replacement, right? And for me, I don't want to indict the consciousness of members of parliament. I want to indict the consciousness of Kenyans. Should this impeachment come to a conclusion where the deputy president is indeed, impeached on the basis of the charges that we have seen, if they're substantiated, and I'm using that very carefully, then it calls on us Kenyans, which perhaps even in the public participation that we are having from tomorrow, we need to start reflecting on what is the character and the principle of leadership that we want to see. Because most of the time, Ben, we haven't been able to live to the requirements of Chapter 10 of the Constitution about our national values and principles, and Chapter 6 of the Constitution, which talks about integrity in leadership in general, and how honorable we should be. To the extent that the conversation should be, the next deputy president, are there people of valor, people of integrity, people of towering passion for the country and patriotism for the country that are beyond reproach as we go forward? Because I think that is the pedestal that we need to put under the president. Because under Article 149 of the Constitution, the president is supposed to give a name in 14 days after the impeachment. Are we Kenyans thinking about only the impeachment that's going on, or are we thinking about putting pressure on the person of the president to be able to get or to give Kenyans names that are of people beyond reproach? And of course, we have seen a number of names that are being thrown here and there. As a young person in this country, I don't think I am convinced that those are names that I would say are better than the characters I've seen. Right. You know, but there are names that are already being floated. You know, there's a name of Honorable CS Kindiki that is being floated. There are people who have floated the name of the previous CS for Health, Mutai Kagwe. There are people who have floated the names of perhaps the president going outside the region of Mount Kenya. But the question would be, the way my brother Newton was saying, that this was an issue of votes consolidation. Mm-hmm. The question perhaps would be for Newton to answer, are there other names that probably could consolidate the mountain votes? Yeah.
Before he answers that question.
than the current deputy president. But I think that it's an important conversation that we must have on the basis of values, national values that we want to see as Kenyans. And for me, the names that I'm hearing perhaps are not the most appealing names in terms of going forward, but it's important to mention them and start having a conversation around them.
Senator Nyutu, we have seen some efforts to rally some people behind the interior CS to say that he will represent the interests of the mountain, to try and prop him up, so to speak. You represent the people of Murang'a. Yeah. Murang'a is seen as the cradle of Kikuyu nation. Yes. And we have seen all, I think it's 6 MPs have not signed that motion. What is the ground saying in this very crucial time in our political dispensation?
Thank you, Ben. And Professor Kindiki is a gentleman. Professor Kindiki is a good man. Professor Kindiki qualifies to be anything that he can be, deputy president. But I think I'm very uncomfortable with an argument about who is going to take a seat that is already occupied. So probably those that feel, and if His Excellency the President feels that, in my view, that then Professor Kithure Kindiki should be his deputy, I think that debate should only happen in 2027 when we go to the next elections. But as of now, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya is His Excellency Ruto-Gachagua. He has not resigned, and I can tell you he will not resign. So, I mean, if Professor Kindiki would be made Deputy President through kicking out Ruto-Gachagua, then that is a position that I cannot support, because it is not, it is not even moral. I mean, it's immoral, it's unethical that, you know, I kill my brother, or I mean, I do not want to accuse, Kidure Kindiki professor of any plan in this, that, I mean, my brother is killed so that I can inherit his wife, for example. I mean, that would be very unfair. So back to what you asked me about Murang'a. Murang'a, as you say, is a cradle of the Kikuyu community. In fact, I don't know whether Senator Eddie knows that it's not actually a mythology, but the first parents of the Agikuyu community, that is Mombi and the Gikuyu and Mombi, the shrine is in Murang'a County, Kiharo constituency, in a place called Mukuru Wanyagadaga in Gaturi ward. And so every other Kikuyu, of course, came from Murang'a, has roots in Murang'a. So Murang'a feels strongly that Deputy President Ruto-Gachagua should be allowed to do his job. And just like Eddie said, and like, I mean, I would want, and this is the, I've made this appeal so many times. Anytime I had an opportunity to make an appeal, I hope the president maybe listens, or his people listen. I mean, if there are differences between the two that are in the presidency, that I strongly believe, even now, they can be discussed by the two of them and the same settled. Even if there is no good settlement. That was telling Senator Eddie when the news were, you are doing the news. I mean, they can live together for the balance of 3 years. And I gave Senator Eddie, and he has indicated that, an example of men. We know, even in your place, Ben, old men that, of course, got differences with their wives, but for the sake of public image, for the sake of the children, they remain together. It matters not that each one of them lives in their different room, but at least the marriage is seen to be working. So I would want to appeal to the president that something can still be done. At least between now and 2027, we save Kenyans. Right. Ben, I can tell you, we as the children, the elected members of the National Assembly and Senate, we find ourselves in a very difficult situation where when you are seen associating with the deputy president, then you have problems with the president. Right. And I think vice versa. We as children would want to associate with either of them freely. And how can we do that? By them sitting down, sorting out their problems, and letting us, the children, associate with both of them, each of them freely. Then impeachment will not help this country. Impeachment will not actually even help the politics of His Excellency the President. It will only alienate the mountain from the President. Right. So the people of the mountain, and specifically Murang'a, where I come from, would feel, because of course they're associating this particular push with the president, because we believe that the president can stop it even now. Right. If he talks to these members of the National Assembly. We know that Parliament is independent, but like I've said elsewhere, people listen to their party leaders. So divorcing Ruto-Gachagua is divorcing the entire mountain. Right. I think the president will have to make his own assessment and judgment about that.
Good point. Yeah. All that, also, despite the fact that it was a son of Murang'a, the Kiharu MP, who literally started the fire beneath the deputy president, although he did not sign the motion, but he was one of people seen to be rivals of the DP then.
We have a saying in the Kikuyu language, and I'll translate it because, of course, I don't want to say it in our mother tongue, that you only milk the cow literally speaking, the cow that is at the milking, I don't know what you call that particular.
The milking shed.
The milking shed.
Yes.
That is the one that you milk. Then after you have milked that particular one, then another one will come. So for now, the cow that is in the milking shed is Ruto-Gachagua. So the Honorable Ndindi Nyoro is a very promising leader. He is actually presidential material. But for now, we are saying Ruto-Gachagua should be given his time to serve.
All right.
And I dare say that with Ruto-Gachagua and Ndindi Nyoro, as the people of the mountain, we see Kibaki and Uhuru. When Kibaki was done, Uhuru came in. So when Ruto is done, then Ndindi Nyoro will come. So we are very comfortable with the two leaders, but for now, Ruto-Gachagua is the Deputy President of the Republic.
Very quickly, Senator Okech, because of time, what's your take on Senator Nyutu's, and we've had even the DP say, don't disrupt the country, let us finish the 3 years, and what's your take on that school of thought?
Two very quick thoughts. The people of Kenya in 2010 gave themselves a constitution that contemplated what we're discussing now. They contemplated that any individual, both governors and their deputies and president and his or a deputy, can sometimes bring dishonor to the office that they have or be corrupt at individual levels where you have to take responsibility as an individual. That's why the impeachment of the president is articulated under Article 144 and 145. But the impeachment of a deputy president is articulated under Article 149 and 150, meaning that the framers of the Constitution, for which all the people of Kenya appended their signatures and promulgated in 2010, saw a situation whereby anybody could be able to misbehave. And let me tell you, Ben, I've seen a number of conversations online that, you either impeach both or none. Imagine, Ben, you've gone to a court of law and a judge has been brought to a criminal or anybody who has done a wrongdoing. And then the judge says, you have brought me this criminal, but there are so many other criminals outside there. So I'm not going to listen to this case until you go back there and get me all the criminals so that I can be able to hear them. It's impractical. It's delusional for the senator of Muranga to think that this thing is an exercise in futility. It's a very serious matter that has got constitutional weight, for which it was preempted by the framers of the constitutions and Kenyans at large. So I think that let's not run away from it. Let's deal with it to its final conclusion, because I believe that justice will be found within the borders of Parliament, and especially within the borders of Senate. And if there is no justice there, there's reprieve in other ways that you can be able to get justice. But that said, I also think that the issue that he has brought about the mountain, around reducing the mountain to be only Kikuyus, is exactly the original sin that our forefathers committed. And I think that maybe, and not maybe perhaps to side with anybody in this case, but I think that this is what even the broad-based government is trying to solve. The issue that we can have a government that, whether you were elected by a minority of the people or not, and legitimate questions are hanging anywhere, you can be able to serve every single person that is there. You see, like right now, when you reduce this conversation to an issue of the mountain, and then you reduce further to Kikuyus in the mountain, where do you leave the Embu? Where do you leave the Meru? Where do you leave the Mbere? All these people are found within the mountain in the larger context of central Kenya. And this anecdotal moments that we sometimes lose the idea of nation building and patriotism is what brings us the problem that brings about the tribalism. Lastly, Ben, on the question that he has talked about Kindiki as a potential, good man, a potential candidate for the deputy president, I think that he was in the Senate when it was only the Senate as an institution of parliament that sat during the time that we had the hardest moment of young people running the Gen Z movement. And it is the Senate that came up with the solutions that spoke to the issues that were emanating at that time, including the killings of young people, over 75 families that lost people, and including the demands of young people. We put all these things in a resolution that was sent to the presidency and the people around the president, including Kithure Kindiki himself. Some of these issues also touch on issues like IBC. Ben, we are in a situation whereby election is coming in 2-3 years, and we don't have an IBC in place. If you had an IBC in place and he was so scared about this impeachment, then probably everybody could have gone to an election, which is what some of us could have pushed for.
Fair enough.
So what I'm saying is that I hope that somebody like Kindiki, I hope that somebody like Kindiki can be able to push. If they want to go beyond reproach, they can be able to push that the agenda of the Senate that was pushed forward by the Senate of Kenya, that included compensation of young people who went through agonizing moment during the protest, can be able to be compensated, and the agenda that can be able to, bring reprieve to some of these bad historical things that we've gone through, then you'll be able to merit. Otherwise,
thank you, Senator.
There is nobody who will be able to meet the integrity
Senator,
test for the next
1 minute.
Yes, because I have a right of reply, and thank you for granting my right, Ben. I think Senator Eddy should, one, remember that I was responding to a question that you asked. So when he says that I reduced the debate into a mountain issue and to a Kikuyu issue, I think he had not listened when you asked me the question, because I was responding to a question, because you brought the issue of Ndindi Nyoro and Ruto-Gachagua, and that is why it went the way it did. So it was not a matter of reducing it. Of course, Eddie, you do not expect me to be elected by the people of Murang'a, and think that I do not know how big Kenya is. And I know no particular community can be able to win the presidency on its own. So I did not reduce it to a Kikuyu matter or to a mountain matter. I was responding to the question that Ben had asked. The other thing you said that, of course, that the drafters of the Constitution envisaged that women need to remove a deputy president or a president by way of impeachment. And I'm very much aware about that. However, this particular one, and that's why I give the kind of response that I give, this is a matter that is not constitutional, as constitutional per se, from what we are seeing. This is a matter that is political in nature, and that is why I give the kind of response that I give. Because, so I'm not ignorant of the provisions of the Constitution. 145, 144, 145, and 149, of course, affecting the deputy president. So what I would want to say, Ben, is that we should use a dispute resolution mechanism, because it's there. And I'm also appealing to the members of the clergy that prayed this government. In fact, the president is on record as saying that he believes, and it is true, that he was prayed into victory. The same men of the cloth that prayed for this government. I think, Ben, I want to take this opportunity, with your permission, to ask them to get in touch with the president and the deputy president, bring them together. We need to see white smoke. This impeachment, the way the political ramifications that it has, nobody will be comfortable with it. And the Bible records, by the way, that happy are the peacemakers, for they'll be called the sons of God. Bishops, over to you. So you believe, please merit to be called the sons of God by making peace between the two leaders of our country, led by His Excellency the President.
Thank you, Senator. I want to give you each a minute. There is a fundamental question that this whole debate has raised, and a lot of discussions on it. I'll start with you, Senator Eddy. In the system that we have, a presidential candidate needs a running mate. It's not the old constitution where a president would be elected and then appoint a vice president. So as a presidential candidate, you need a strong running mate who can help you win an election, right? But we have seen in the two presidents that we've had in the new dispensation that such a running mate would become ambitious, politically speaking. Then the same case with the governors and deputy governors. Both are strong figures and they don't see eye to eye. What is the cure for this? Just 1 minute only as your parting shot.
Patriotism. Patriotism is the cure. And it's actually something that we have groomed that has been that end up being a tribal calculation all the time. Because when you think about just somebody's going to give you numbers, which is how the two came to bed together to bring about the birth of the Kenya Kwanza government, I saw in my own leader, Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, when he was faced with the same kind of very hard decision. Do you go for a running mate who has proven to be a woman of valor, to be a woman of value, to be a woman of virtue that is towards national building, or do you go for mere people who are going to give you numbers? I have seen and attested to the fact that Raila Odinga selected a running mate based on virtue. So patriotism,
is the answer.
And we have seen it also in the Gen Z movement when young people have come together on the basis of not tribe, but Kenyanness that brings us together.
Thank you, Senator.
It's possible, but it starts with Kenyans being able to push their leaders towards that end.
Senator Newton, is there a cure to end the fighting?
Thank you. And I think that's a very fundamental question, Ben, because it does not apply, for me, not only the presidency, but also the governor and their deputies. I think we need to come up with a law where if the president or the governor ceases to hold office for whatever reason, whether by impeachment or whatever it is, that an election be held. Why do I say it is? Because today, a deputy governor, immediately the governor ceases to hold office, whether by impeachment, by death, or whatever it is, God forbid, then the deputy governor automatically becomes governor.
But that's constitutional.
It's constitutional. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. The ultimate solution to this particular
is changing the constitution.
Is changing the constitution so that when a vacancy arises, or governor ceases to hold office, then automatically there will be an election, maybe after 3 months, so that then nobody will think of maybe outshining the other or bringing out that. Probably we should also think about it. If the deputy president, for example, also vacates office for whatever reason or through whatever means, then that maybe the president is required to provide about maybe 4 names, and then an election is done.
Fair enough.
But you can't legislate bad manners. Simple as that. You will never be able to legislate bad manners and correct bad manners.
If bad manners will cure our country, so be it.
So the
Thank
only
you,
way
gentlemen.
is to
We have to end it there.
get people of integrity.
Thank you.
And
Senator,
let people vote with people of integrity to office.
Senator Eddie Okech, Senator of the County of Migori, Senator Joe Nyutu, Senator of the County of Muranga. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming to studio to just help us make sense of what's happening in this country in politics. Of course, Kenyans counting down hours to tomorrow morning, where public participation on the motion by Parliament, the National Assembly, to impeach Deputy President Ruto-Gachagua will be happening across the country. We shall be covering that for you here on NTV from 9 a.m. To just show you what will be happening across the country. Thank you for watching. For all of us on the broadcast on this special edition, I'm Ben Kitili. Good night from Nairobi.